Our quarterback strategy for 2025 redraft drafts is here, and we are ready to target these middle to late quarterbacks in our redrafts. Got Tyler with me, Matt with First Read Fantasy. Super excited to dive into some of these players. Let's just get straight to it. All right, Tyler. So we're talking quarterbacks in redraft now. I know we kind of did a mock draft here recently, and the thing we came away with the most was quarterbacks falling to the middle to late rounds feel like the value this year. Obviously, we have some big names like Lamar, who scored 400 plus points last year, Josh Allen, who had 384. That's a ton of fantasy production. But some of those guys after that, are you better off taking names further down in the draft, in your opinion, Tyler?
Honestly, man, I teetered with this idea back and forth. Even whenever we did our mock, I ended up drafting Joe Burrow in like the fourth or fifth round. And it was something that whenever I came away at the end of the draft, I looked and I saw all of this value that came in the seventh, eighth round, and even later. And it really left me wondering, like, okay, well, maybe if I pushed back, like I pushed back my quarterback selection from Joe Burrow, maybe it's something that my team would have looked drastically different. So that's what we're going to find out here today. We've got some stats, kind of guys available in the later rounds, see how they kind of stack up versus the elite guys.
Yeah, I think we should just get started to it. I mean, you mentioned you drafted Joe Burrow at the 406 in our last mock draft. Definitely a ton of value there. A guy who scored 382 points last year can certainly repeat that. But the question is what kind of value are you passing later on with names? And let's just kick it right off with the quarterback four on the season, Tyler. And that's going to be Baker Mayfield, who finished as quarterback four, 4,500 passing yards, 470 attempts, 41 passing touchdowns. Absolute monster year for him. Scored 22 and a half fantasy points per game. I mean, when we're looking at where he went in our draft, it was the seventh round. So you're looking at a guy you could have got instead of Joe Burrow and added a big name like maybe a Mike Evans, maybe a Mario and Hampton in that fourth round. And it certainly could have changed your roster to make it look a whole lot stronger. So Baker Mayfield, is he one of those guys that you'd be willing to target this upcoming season?
Yeah, honestly, I think so. You know, we talk about it year in and year out. You're always going to have these candidates for regression. And while Baker did have 41 passing touchdowns, and he's definitely a candidate for that, this offense is just built to pass, man. They've got Chris Godwin back. They still have Mike Evans. They found Jalen McMillan last year, and now they just drafted Emeka Egbuka. So I don't think anything really changes. I mean, obviously Liam Cohen's gone, so we'll see how that offense kind of transitions around there. But if they continue the pass volume, and I think even Baker had like 500 and some attempts at this point last year. So I mean, if they're even close to that, you know, I don't see a world where he's not still throwing in the high 30s and touchdowns, which is still a great year regardless. He is a target for me, you know, especially after seeing our mock draft. His ADP is about 93, 94, somewhere in that range. So if you've got a 12-team league, you know, you're looking at like seventh, eighth round, somewhere in that range. Dude, really, if you're getting 6, 7 players and possibly getting another player advantage, like maybe a tight end or something in your fourth or fifth round, maybe taking a shot on Kittle or somebody like that, and then coming back later down the road and pairing that with Baker, who could give you another top 5 year, you know, I feel like that's just huge value, man.
Yeah, and the thing that you want to emphasize here is the value you're giving up when you're taking a guy like Joe Burrow in that fourth round versus, like you mentioned, Baker in the seventh or eighth round. Yeah, will he finish quarterback four next year? Maybe not, but he's going to be probably top 10. And I think there's a chance he can repeat. They've invested in that offense. Yes, Cohen is gone, but I don't think they're suddenly going to fall off. It's 2 years in a row that Baker has played significantly better than previously in his career. I mean, you know, he was quarterback four last year, and I don't think we can look past that. It was not a fluke. He was 10 the year before that. So he's put together back-to-back years, looking well, playing well. I mean, he only had 28 touchdowns in that quarterback 10 season. So you're telling me that he can't have 30-something this upcoming season? I absolutely see that. I see no reason for this Bucs offense to slow down. And, you know, let's just jump to our next name, Tyler, that I think is in that same boat. And let's talk about Justin Herbert. I mean, Justin Herbert finished as quarterback 12, had 17 points per game, only 23 passing touchdowns. And that's the number that I see going up. This offense, yes, it's built to run. Najee Harris has the injury in the offseason. We'll see what happens to his stock as we move forward. But when we see the passing game in LA, I think it got significantly better. I mean, there's a lot of hype about Oronde Gadsden. What could he be stepping into that tight end role? Obviously, we have Ladd McConkey, who's a fantastic wide receiver, and they add Trey Harris, and Trey Harris is going to be a perfect complement to Ladd McConkey. He's going to be a guy that can stretch the field. He can break off routes. He's going to be a demon running across the middle. So I'm super excited to see what Justin Herbert can put together with this offense. And he's a guy that's going even later. His ADP is at 125. And our mock that we're talking about, he went in the 10th round at the 10:03. I mean, a quarterback 12 finish, yeah, is that not necessarily what you want? Of course not. But he has it in his pedigree to finish higher than that. I mean, we've seen it from him in the past. He finished as a quarterback 2 overall. He had 38 touchdowns in his second year in 2021. Could he do that again? Absolutely, he could. Do I think he's going to be quarterback 2? Not necessarily, but I do think he'll be a top 7 to 8 guy going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't also mention that both quarterbacks, the Baker, who we just talked about, and also Justin Herbert, they have some ability with their legs as well. Justin Herbert had 306 rushing yards last year. He added 2 touchdowns. Now, obviously, we know that if they're going to run the ball, it's primarily going to be through Amari and Hampton and hopefully Najee, depending on the eye situation. But they have that ability to get out of the pocket and move if they need to. They are athletic enough to do so. And that just provides you a safe floor when it comes to fantasy production. No, it's not Lamar. You're not looking at almost 1,000 or, some crazy number, but it's just a general floor. And so when you get those guys that can move out of the pocket and give you just a little bit on the ground, that's so much better than if you get somebody like a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning who never moved from the pocket. And if they did, they looked slow while they did it. Like, these guys are all athletic enough to be able to increase those numbers. But also, like we said, this offense should just keep going up and up. They added Trey Harris. People were worried about Mike Williams for forever. He's retired a Charger. Now he's off everybody's radar. So I think Trey Harris is going to start skyrocketing up ADP boards. Everybody they already assume that Ladd is the wide receiver 1, and I agree. So his ADP's up. I think this whole offense is trending in an upward direction. We know that Jim Harbaugh loves him some Justin Herbert. He touts him every chance he gets. And so I think overall, man, I think this is another prime candidate. And I see them very similarly, and you're getting Justin Herbert, 3 rounds later? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 rounds later. So these guys are some of the guys that I'll be targeting, as redraft comes around, and hoping to build a team around at this point.
Yeah, and again, I drafted him in the mock that we did at the 10:03 with an ADP of, what did we say? It was 125. So, I mean, the value is fantastic. When we look at some of the names that went around that spot, I'll just read them off to you. Ramondre Stevenson, Jaden Reed, Isaac Guerrero, Michael Pittman, Javonte Williams, Keon Coleman. Like, I would much rather have Justin Herbert as opposed to taking, maybe a Jalen Hurts in the 4th round, because you're just going to lose so much value and you're not necessarily gaining any points. And I want to stop here for a second and talk about Jalen Hurts, because that's the easy one to pick on. I mean, he's got a 4th round ADP. He had 21.3 points per game. He scored 320 points this past season. Certainly a solid year. I don't want to say it's not, but when we're talking about guys like even Bo Nix, who is drafted, at the 701, he had 19.3 points per game. So we're talking about a difference of 2 points. Jared Goff had 19.7, so less than 2 points, and you can get him in the 10th round. And you're missing out on guys like Amari and Hampton, James Cook, for, instead of having to take a Tony Pollard or a DeAndre Swift or Jacoby Myers. So you're really losing out on a ton of value for not necessarily the chance to get the quarterback 1 overall, because you have to remember, yes, Lamar Jackson is going to get his points. Yes, Josh Allen is going to get his points too. And they have the chance to score 400 points, and that's fantastic. But Hurts' passing upside has been limited. I don't suddenly expect him to go out there and get it done. He's never thrown for more than I think 24 passing touchdowns. So I don't
Yep.
expect him to suddenly throw for 35. Whereas some of these other guys we're talking about, they've already done it. They've already
Mhm.
proven it. So you know what they're going to get their value from. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously the tush push to this point is still going to happen. So Hurts is going to get his points. But again, only 320 points last year. So it wasn't enough really to say that, yeah, it paid off if you drafted him at the fourth round, as opposed to drafting a guy like Amari Hampton or maybe a Marvin Harrison and then drafting one of these later guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. And I wanted to point out too, we keep referencing the mock that we did. When you took Justin Herbert in the 10th, your fourth round pick was Kenneth Walker, and you turned around in the fifth and picked up DJ Moore. So that's two high value pieces. Now, do we tout them as being, super top tier? No, but those are valuable pieces that people are going to want on fantasy teams. Like those are the caliber of guys that you are missing out on if you're taking these quarterbacks early. And by taking one of these later or mid round quarterbacks, whatever you want to consider them, I think you're just going to gain so much value. I do like the point on Jalen Hurts, talking about the 24 passing touchdowns. I mean, we just said Baker's threw for 41 last year. If he comes down to the 30s, he's still above Jalen Hurts. Does he run as much? No. But who says that he can't outscore him? So
Yep.
and even if Justin Herbert takes the step forward that everybody else thinks he's going to, he could be in the same boat. We could see that easily. So I'm really interested to kind of see how this shakes up this year. I want to see there's going to be a dark horse or two that comes out, and kind of finishes top 5, top 6 here that I don't think anybody's going to see coming.
Yeah, and let's just jump to the next name that has that possibility, just given the rushing upside he has, and that's going to be Kyler Murray. I mean, he finished as quarterback 10 this past year, 3,800 passing yards, only 21 passing touchdowns. That's certainly a number we want to see go up, averaging 18.1 points per game. When he is healthy, he's a fantastic fantasy asset. And again, if we go and we pull our mock draft, he went at the 1004. So in the 10th round, you can get a guy that averaged 18 points per game instead of taking a guy like Jalen Hurts in the fourth round who only averaged 21 points per game. So you're not really missing a whole bunch, but you're gaining a ton of value. So Tyler, what's your stance on Kyler Murray?
Yeah, I've always been a big Kyler fan. I think probably the last 2 years you've probably been really disappointed in him, especially if you have him on any fantasy teams. Everybody touted, obviously, Marvin Harrison to come out and him be the next Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson level kind of guy. Didn't live up to that in his rookie year, but I still think the potential for him to succeed is there. And I think him and Kyler are just going to kind of come together here, kind of merge the mind melds there, get those together. And I think they're going to get on the same page. I think when you watched them last year, there was a lot of like them not being on the same page, or maybe he expected Marv to be in a spot where he wasn't, or stuff like that. It's just all timing. It's when you play together, you get those reps in, that you really get that connection going. And I truly think this year is going to go differently for them. And honestly, I mean, outside of Marv and Trey McBride and then James Conner, you really don't have that much on this team. So if you get that target consolidation and this offense continues to go up, like we said, then Kyler could easily be the dark horse, and all the targets being consolidated, that could give you some stack potential. Like you're only picking from a few key players that you're going to stack there. We referenced the rushing yards earlier. Kyler, out of the guys that we've talked about, has had the most this past year. He had 572 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. So everybody likes to make fun of him running around, looks like a toddler in the background with a football in his hand, So whenever he's in the backfield and he starts scrambling, it's always fun to watch, but he's also electric, and he can make moves with his feet and score. So I truly think, he's got the solid rushing baseline that we look for. If him and Marv get on the same page, him and Trey McBride stay on the same page, who they just extended, I truly think this offense can go upwards. Is it going to be a top 10 offense? No. But if it's middle of the pack and you get all that target consolidation, I truly think this is one quarterback candidate who in the later rounds is just going to provide you great value.
Yeah, and one last point about Kyler too is he already has a season where he had 11 rushing touchdowns. He has multiple years with 5. So if he gets that rushing upside, if this offense takes any steps forward and he stays healthy, Absolutely, he's going to be a fantastic fantasy value just given his ADP. I mean, it's insane.
Mhm.
But let's just hit a few more here, Tyler. We've got some other late round guys that we haven't talked about. Obviously, there's some riskier plays like Justin Fields, who has an ADP around the 11th, 12th round. You're taking some risk there, but I get the fantasy upside.
Mhm.
Dak Prescott at the end of the 11th round, another one. Offense gets better. He gets Pickens added to this team. What can he do? We know when Dak is healthy, he's going to sling the ball all over the place. I think we said on one of our last streams, I can't remember which one it was, he's thrown for almost 600 pass attempts 3 times in his career. So if he
Mhm.
plays the entire year, there's a solid chance he will be a top 5 quarterback just because he has the opportunity. And then finally, let's hit our last one here. And let's talk about Trevor Lawrence. I know a lot of people don't want to hear about it, but last year he didn't necessarily play very well, but he didn't have the entire season. This year, he's coming forward, going to be healthy, coming on. He's going to have Brian Thomas Jr., and he's going to have the addition of the superstar Travis Hunter. We'll see what happens with these different running backs, who's going to be the guy, whether it's Spatial Tootin, who knows, or it could be Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne. Doesn't matter who it is. The options for Trevor Lawrence is what matters the most. He also has Brenton Strange. So when Trevor Lawrence has the ability to be healthy, stand in the pocket, and deliver, we've seen him have a top 10 quarterback season already in 2022, where he was QB8 and he had only 25 touchdowns that season. I think he can replicate that. And we're talking about guys who add something to their game. He's another one, sneaky athletic. He'll get some rushing yards, he'll get some rushing touchdowns. I mean, not necessarily a great sample last year because he didn't play the entire season, but the year before that, where he had 16 games, he had 339 rushing yards, added 4
Mhm.
touchdowns on the ground. Year before that, 5 touchdowns, another 300 yards on the ground. So this is a guy that can do it with his legs. He can extend plays, and he's another one that you can draft literally undrafted. He
Yep.
might not get drafted, and you can just pick him up off waivers before the season starts, and that's a fantastic ad for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the way I kind of look at this. I think this is a make or break year for Trevor Lawrence. I really do. I mean, they've got all the weapons there at this point, and I do hope he steps it up, and they succeed as an offense this year. I do want to see Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter be those top guys that they're touted to be. Obviously, we've seen Brian Thomas Jr. do it already. Um, the one upside, like you said, the biggest upside for me is the fact that you can literally get him at the end of your draft. We did 13 rounds in our mock, and he was available in the last round. He was second from the last pick.
Yeah, and I
So
picked him as a joke.
exactly. And so it's just like he could go undrafted. And you were talking about guys, other guys that fill in here. Let's say that somebody wanted to take a shot on Justin Fields, and they wanted to say, hey, guess what? Like, I'm just going to take the bet. And if it doesn't work out, they turn around and they draft Trevor Lawrence, who's going to go undrafted pretty much, or in the last few rounds. And now you've got a stable quarterback to where if Justin Fields doesn't work out, you've got him who's still got some upside as well. Another guy that we didn't really talk about, we were mentioning other quarterbacks in the range was Jared Goff too.
Mhm.
I mean, that's another player that you're getting these mid-run quarterbacks where, man, there's just so much value, and that's the thing. Trevor being available at the very end, obviously, is just even crazier. To me, I mean, he does have that rushing upside, and I think that's probably one of his big strong points. I hope he does stay healthy. He missed 7 games last year, so that really hurt as far as his total fantasy finish. I think he finished 27 or something, which you kind of throw that out the window. But his fantasy points was 15.2, which was 22nd in the league. Wasn't great. He was still playing through injury, so it's probably not really a true evaluation of where he stood last year. Um, Overall, I think he's got the potential. I think him and Kyler are probably neck and neck, in terms of the way people view them right now. People being down on both, having the rushing upside. Could their passing offenses, could they take a step forward? And just having the options they have. I think this is truly somebody who could give you, some adequate value at the end here. It's a dart throw at worst. I feel like it's a pretty good shot in the dark. Um, and just to go in a roundabout way here, if you're telling me that, I can get any of these guys towards the end, right? or I have to go and I have to draft. Let's say I don't want to go the top guys like Jalen Hurts and them. I don't even want to go there. Let's say that you're going between these guys and like Patrick Mahomes. Would you not rather take these guys who are way lower down in ADP? And I know people are down on Patrick Mahomes, but he's still higher than all of these guys. And I'd rather have these guys at this point. Like, I just,
Yeah.
it's crazy, man.
I mean, Mahomes went at the 905. I mean, you mentioned Jared Goff, who went at the 912 in our draft. I said earlier, 19.7 points per game. He's not that far off a guy like Jalen Hurts, who's going in the fourth round. So
Mhm.
the name difference there is huge. I mean, we're talking about Tajay Spears, Darnell Mooney versus, again, Cook, Harvey, Devontae
Mhm.
Smith, Cortland Sutton, names that are going to score a bunch of fantasy points. So I think you and I are on the same page. This is kind of the year to target those middle to late round quarterbacks. Go get your guys because there's so many that we didn't even talk about. Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Drake May, JJ McCarthy. The names are there, and who knows where they're going to finish. But I think the value is taking one of these guys later and figuring out in your drafts and get the value early on in the other positional opportunities. But I think that's going to do it for us. We appreciate everyone who tuned in. So be sure to like the stream and subscribe to First Read Fantasy, and we'll catch you in the next one.